Hello and welcome to this week's Rocksmith Developer Stream. I am your host and the community developer on Rocksmith, Douglas Lilly. Very glad to have you all here. If this is your first time joining us on our stream, we like to talk about music, we like to play music, and then we like to make videos about things related to music, which we'll get to a bit later on. Today, we have some performances later on in the stream from frequent collaborator and guest ElisaRockDoc, along with Evan Lamb. That's coming into the second half of the stream. But today, we wanted to talk a bit about imperfection, why you might want to not aim for perfection, what you can do with imperfection, and how to use it to your advantage. As we go along through this conversation, if you have any questions for myself or for our guests, please reach out to UB Dork. That is our CM, our community manager, Baja, over in North Carolina. She will take any questions that you have for us and get those to me, and we'll answer those throughout the stream. So yeah, without further ado, I would like to welcome our guests to talk about imperfection. Greg Barr and Shane Gann, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So right before the stream, we were talking about how, yeah, any mistakes that we happen to make today are they're
on topic.
planned. Yeah, they were clearly intentional. So yeah, imperfection. Greg, you and I had a conversation recently, and I think the topic came up, and we decided it would make for good meat in this sort of conversation. So, and we reached out to Shane, and I think the consensus, and please correct me if I'm wrong. So the music that you do, how would you describe it, Greg?
Oh, I think it's definitely improvised. A lot of it is improvised, and I've always been a fan of improvisation, and with that, comes a lot of mistakes or mishaps. I mean, even doing this stream, like, we don't have a script, so we're all improvising all the time.
Yeah.
So I like music that is like that, and I like music that is collaborative and where multiple people are improvising at the same time. So I think a lot of that's important to me.
And that can go into some strange places, I imagine.
Oh yeah, sure.
And then so we brought up Shane. A lot of the music that you do, welcome Shane. Everything sounds very precise.
Yes.
Are we right in that? How much perfectionism do you have to fight against or work with when you make your music?
Well, I would say so. The primary channel for my output these days and in my past has been my band Hail the Sun. We have I don't know, probably around 8 releases now. Maybe this is the 8th we're rolling out right now. And because that's a collaborative process, there is an amount of perfectionism that goes into it, but also you're reliant on the other people that are involved in the project. So even if I'm really focused on making a part perfect, I'm still only contributing sort of 25% of the overall end product. So I kind of let myself give myself a little bit of a break, I would say sometimes.
Yeah.
The perfectionism is baked into a lot of what I do, and that's something I'm glad to be on this talk today about, because I constantly have to remind myself that it's not important, or it's not everything to be perfect, and a lot of times the imperfection is more important. But yeah, it definitely, my gut goes to, I want to work on this more. It's not there yet. I want to be better. Yeah, closer to what I'm aiming for.
So I think, as musicians, artists, sort of craftspeople, you obviously want to make something that is of high quality. At what point do you have to step in and look at something and say, this is not, like, perfection is not something that this will achieve? Like, do you have to say that about an endeavor that you're working on, like a song, say?
Yeah, I think perfection is a good. It's something you do aim for. I mean, you obviously have to learn the ropes and you have to learn your craft and get as good as possible. But I think what I see sometimes, especially among newer players, is they kind of get paralyzed and they think, oh, I'm not good enough. I can't share this with anyone. I can't sing. I can't write. I can't play guitar well enough. I have to wait until I'm at some certain level. But that level is, you know, actually unattainable. And it's good to like embrace like where you're at. So it's not to say that you shouldn't strive for perfection or really high quality, but you should think of your output as like kind of a benchmark of where you're at the time, you know, like a photograph. Like, you know, we all look different in our old photographs, and it's
Right.
you know, those that's important to kind of document that, I think.
Shane, what were you gonna say?
I mean, that was super well said. I'm going to be holding on to that photograph line for a long time. I feel the same way. I know that, yeah, like Greg said, there is that desire to be up to your own standard. But that standard really only exists because of what you feel capable of doing. And there's a quote that I go to a lot from Henry Longfellow Wordsworth. And it says, "We judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while others judge us by what we have already done." And that seems like it's really resonating with what Greg is saying, because a lot of times, especially personally, it feels like I hold myself back because I don't feel like I'm reaching that capability. I haven't yet translated my exact emotion and thought into music yet. But if I'm getting close enough, I should be happy to put that out as this point in time.
Right, and I guess that's what this conversation is. It's finding those mental switches and being able to flip them. Because yeah, if you sit down and every time you work on a project, you think, well, if this isn't as good as I will ever be able to make anything, I'll never release it. And that's what we don't want, because that keeps music, that keeps art from being made ultimately, and secondarily it keeps it from reaching people. So people who are too perfectionistic are keeping me from hearing music that I might like a lot, and that's selfish. I want to hear the music. I want to hear what you're doing, you know, even if it's not the best song that you could have ever written. So yeah, how do you have certain tells that you can say, I am being too precious about this, I need to let go? Do you know how to identify when you're in that state?
Shane?
I don't. Okay, I would say that seems like really, it's like you're in my brain these days. It's pretty funny because literally I feel like I'm crossing through that threshold of seeing the way. There's a part of me that, you know, music and most art and creativity is this just pure expression. We're all aiming to just express ourselves. And the opposite side of the coin is thinking about what you're making, thinking about what you're doing, thinking about what you want to be making and doing. And there's a part of that sort of planning and checking yourself that is important if you do really have like a specific goal you're going for, which I know we've talked about on the stream before, Doug, about goals. But the more important part of the whole process is that intuition and that expression that comes with being an artist or a musician or a creator in any form, even a cook. You know, you just want to walk in and be like, you know, Chopped has come up a few times on the stream, and they just see their basket and they go, okay, I'm going to make this. And they just have to know and go for it. Because otherwise you lose even just 2 minutes thinking about it and you probably won't finish.
And I think that takes us to something that's come up on the stream a few times, which is the sort of the beauty and the importance of limitations, of being able to set your own limits. I'm not saying that, you know, limitations on their own are the best thing for everybody, but being able to set your own limitations and saying, okay, today I want to write 5 words. I want to write a song that's just 5 words. What 5 words are those going to be? I got to do it today. So by the end of the day, I got 5 words. And then you build from there. You say, well, I did that. I managed to get 5 words down. Maybe are they the 5 best words? I don't know, but they're 5 words I can look at. They're on paper, and now I can do something else because the thing that I wanted to do is done. So yeah, how often? And I know we talked, Shane, last time a bit about those limitations, setting your own deadlines. Greg, do you have any sort of go-to limitations, either with be it arrangements, deadlines, any sort of limitations that you impose upon yourself in order to get something made, where otherwise there's too much space to fill?
Yeah, I think I struggle more with the time-based deadlines. That's a lot of the stuff I've done has been with other people who are better about setting deadlines, or literally have like, a hard out where they're like, well, I got to be out of here by this time, so we got to get it done. So it's helpful to have that person sometimes to bounce ideas off of. But just within my own output, it's like I think setting limitations with the gear you have is really great. And it's hard to do when you have the means to like buy a bunch of gear or have a bunch of options. And sometimes the more gear you have, the harder it is to make those decisions.
Yeah. So do you set intentional limits as far as like, okay, so this song I'm only going to use these instruments,
sometimes.
Do you have any other...
not that much. I should do it more, but I do see the value in it. But I do sometimes, depending on like the song that it is, you just have to kind of know what's not going to fit in the song, and you have to hold back from like putting every single instrument in the world. Oh, this song needs a xylophone too, and a thunder sheet. It's like not every song needs those things. So just like being honest with yourself, and like sometimes the song just needs one guitar and a voice or whatever, whatever the project is, or one color on a canvas. It doesn't have to be all of them. So I don't know.
All right. And when, Greg, when do you think is the time for perfectionism? When do you think, or do you think there's a time?
Playing Rocksmith.
Okay. So practice. So drilling, practice. That's when you want to aim for. Just Go. Don't let me explain that for you.
Yeah.
Please explain what you mean.
You think you have to learn the rules. Like you have to learn how to play it the correct way, like as good as you can, and then kind of forget it. After, once you get to a certain point. I think there's a good Charlie Parker quote that says like, I'm going to paraphrase, but he said like, learn all the changes and then forget them. Like learn all the chord changes, know all the scales and blah, 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 learn all that stuff. And then when you get to a certain point, just forget them and just play, So I think it's good to be able to do both, but it's just a balance. And even in the game, I mean, it's good to get 100%, but it's if you're only aiming to get 100% on a note track, you're missing a whole other side of things, which is just ignore the note track and just like listen to the music and just like noodle over it. I mean, me and Shane and all the note trackers, like when we used to go back and riff repeat everything, we used to have to riff repeat every level that we designed. And so we'd have like, 10, 15 seconds between notes. And some of the funniest and like best musical things that we did just came from just improvising in the space between those notes and just playing along to the track.
Yeah, and surprisingly, just to tack onto that, sometimes you'll find things that are not in the note track or aren't in the song that really feel like you kind of unlocked a shortcut in the song, or you found something about how what the song is that you wouldn't have found if you were just playing exactly with the note track.
Yeah.
Something like just a blue note or something in a certain song, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that was going to feel so good if I played it.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody would have ever told me to.
Yeah. And just for clarity, in case we have some people in chat, could you define blue note?
Blue note is it exists in between scale notes in a regular Western scale. Greg, do you have a guitar around?
I do. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like okay. So like an A minor pentatonic. Okay, bad framing here too. This is the pentatonic, and then the blue note is this note. So it's in between. But the thing is, it's never just right on that note, it's always kind of slid into or something. That's a great example actually of imperfection, is that it's, there's multitudes in between those intonations, in between this note and this note. There's infinite
notes. Yeah.
And it's all in how you express it. So 100 people could play that note a different way, and it's just a half step, So I don't know. Yeah, that's the Blue Note, I guess, or something like that.
And I think. And I think I'm piecing this together as we talk between this conversation and when we were chatting last week. We were talking about confidence, and if you're playing live, especially if you're playing live, I assume if you're gonna miss a note, like commit to that miss note, like commit to that wrong note, right?
Yeah.
And just convince everybody that you're playing to. No, I meant to do this. This is exactly what you came here to see.
Yeah.
And I think and that confidence, I imagine, comes from that practice, comes from learning the rules so that you can discard them, right?
Because you have to know that you messed up. But
right.
You have to know that it doesn't matter, or that you can
get out
confidence
of it.
Confidence
your way through.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to know first that you made a mistake so that you can play it off.
Yeah, you're like acknowledging it in the moment. And even if, you're not necessarily saying I meant to do this, you're still saying like I know what I did, and I am embracing it with full confidence.
Right.
And then if you can get out of it, like if you can make it sound in retrospect like you meant to be there, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And you can't, and that's the key, is like, you trip off a roof and then accidentally, and then you do a front flip and land on your feet or something. It's like even more impressive than if you did a front flip.
Stick the landing. Know how to stick the landing. I think
people only remember the beginning and the end of songs. So if you can just like stick those landings, like, that's the key.
And Greg, I wanted to hear about this anecdote about imperfection and why sometimes it doesn't matter. You're talking about a bass note.
Oh yeah, there was a song like very early on when I started in the first game doing the bass expansion pack, and I don't remember the song, but it was one bass note that was like, it only happened for like one measure of the song, so it was the same section of the song, but it was clearly he was just laying on a wrong note. And not even just once, it was like for a whole measure, like maybe like 4 or 8 times, he was repeating this note, and I think he just landed on the wrong fret. And we were very much about accuracy back in that day, so we all knew it was a wrong note, but it kind of tore the transcriptionist team like in 2 camps. And half of us were like, oh, we should put the note that he plays, because who are we to say that he didn't mean to do that? It's like, maybe it was a creative choice, even though most likely it wasn't, and it didn't sound very good to us, but it was a subjective call. So then, and then the other half was like, no, we should fix it for him, because we know what we think he was trying to play. And honestly, I don't remember which way we went with it. I think we fixed it to the quote unquote right note. But it was really interesting to see kind of where everyone landed on that.
Whether you're note tracking the recording or you're note tracking the song. Those aren't necessarily the same things all the time.
That is a great way to put it. Yeah, exactly. Like the song was probably not that note intended, but then the bass player played that note, so the recording was different than maybe what the song intended to be. So.
And I want to ask, I don't know your kind of compositional styles, like how you create your songs. How much of your songwriting does come down to experimentation and sort of like happy accidents, and how much is intentional, like following the idea that you have set out beforehand? If that question makes sense.
I kind of wonder if Hail the Sun, like how much you guys improvise together when you're writing, or do you bring stuff in individually and then fit it together, or do you sometimes jam together and come up with parts? Or
with Hail the Sun, it typically starts with just one little piece, either a guitar riff, or rarely it'll be like a drum rhythm or something like that. And then, yeah, we actually will just pretty much loop the section until it kind of feels like we know our spot in the whole thing. And a lot of times we are sort of accidentally clashing with each other, especially on guitar. Sometimes I'll be working on a part and I'm like, this is a really cool part. And then I'll sort of zoom out and listen to what everybody else is doing. And the other guitar is doing something like just one or two notes away, and like the rhythms are sort of fighting with each other. And then at that point, it becomes that sort of, okay, well, do I change my part, or do we try and just find the beauty in the fact that we both are naturally going to this thing, even though it sort of creates friction? And like, yeah, sort of shifting, very, very minutely shifting, I feel like, because we do all kind of tend to want to do what comes naturally, but we also want to stay out of each other's way and avoid, just accidentally. I'll say, you'll see in a video coming up later in the stream, but sometimes attractive is a word that is so subjective. You know, you can't tell somebody what's attractive and what's not attractive, but there are also these fundamental, like it falls into the scientific category of whether two notes are too close, you know, and they hit your ear at the wrong time or at the right time. And it literally, no matter who you are on the planet, you'll be like, that doesn't feel attractive. So just trying to avoid that as much as possible, but also keeping with, I don't know. It takes too long to think about a whole song. And another, actually, this will be quick, but I know a Linkin Park record that came out in 2007 or 8. It was the Minutes to Midnight. It was that era. I remember hearing on the radio that they had literally, as a band, pretty much voted on every single note and rhythm and lyric and delivery. Everything about that album was a consensus. They didn't release it until they were all happy. And in a sense, that's a cool thing to have for a band, to be able to say, we all decided on this together. But in a lot of ways, it truly, you can't help but have it watered down a little bit, because you're compromising every single decision. And
Right.
It kind of takes away from some of the magic that happens in collaboration. So it's a definite balance.
And Greg, how much of your work is collaborative and how much is just a one-person project?
Well, I respect Shane for being able to like be in a band with another guitarist, because actually that's something I've never done, and I could see where it would be really challenging. I mean, I did play with Shane, actually. Shane asked me to join him for his other project, Sufferer, and we played a couple shows with that group. But I wasn't having to come up with parts. They were written for me already, and I just had to learn them and play them. And it was really fun doing that. But to like write parts together with another guitarist, like in the moment, I think would be challenging and a kind of a new experience. I had a band with 5 other people, but I was the only guitarist. So it's easier to kind of carve your way in that kind of a setting. And then after that, I mostly kind of wrote my own songs, and then I had a drummer and a bass player, and so it was just 3 of us. So that's also pretty easy, because everyone's kind of staying out of each other's way. There's not really much you can do to get in a bass player's way or in a drummer's way if you're just a guitar player,
And I want to know how, since both of you, you've been in bands, you play, you tour, is road testing still a thing? Like, do you road test songs before you record them, or do people only hear the songs once they've been sort of fully written and recorded?
I don't think it's a thing anymore.
Those days are gone. Those days are gone. That was like 1970s and earlier.
Yeah, I mean,
so I guess
in practice, it's still way more useful to have things be road tested, and it's like beta testing before you release a game.
I guess explain, or do you want to explain what I mean when I say road test songs?
Yeah, you mean just like, you have the song finished with your band, but you want to continue to work it before you really show anybody what it is you've come up with.
Right.
And
before you record it, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it goes both ways, because we've had songs where we finished it writing wise, and then we had performances lined up before the recording date, and we wanted to play one of the new songs, and that's a great version of literally road testing, by putting it in front of an audience every night and seeing how they respond, and seeing, again, like just by playing it over and over, you kind of figure out your role and where you really fit in it, and everybody's doing the same thing too. But because of where we are as creators in this like digital world, and this is even pre-COVID, we're all a little more familiar with and comfortable with, I feel like these days, with being shown kind of the first iteration. Like when you get a new video game and they release the day one patch on top of that, that's them saying like, here's what you get. We also knew that there was other stuff that needed maybe some addressing, and we've decided to take care of that as well. And people are pretty accepting, I think, of seeing the unfinished, unperfected versions of things. So
I bought Devo bootlegs when I was in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I wanted to hear where those songs came from. I wanted to hear what the sort of the initial ideas of the songs that I loved sounded like.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I know there's I believe, I can't remember who the artist was. I think it was within the past couple of years. It's a pretty big name, released an album, and then I think there was like a patch for it, like an update to the album, where on all streaming platforms, and it may have only been released on streaming, maybe a few vinyl presses, but they like the artist fixed one of the songs.
Wow.
Oh, really?
It may have been. The voice in my head says this may have been Kanye West. So where do we live in a world? And I know this isn't something exclusive to music, but yeah, this is something that's been happening with certain film franchises. But when the creator listens to their work and says, you know what, even though this has been out, even though this is released, I can make it better. I want to hear your thoughts. What are sort of the dangers and the opportunities that might provide? This might be this is a bit outside of the scope
super
of the
deep
conversation.
Question.
But now I want to get your opinions.
I've never thought about that. Shane, what do you think?
My gut says that the creator is well within their rights to do whatever they want with their product, but it's really sketchy because, something like let's go as big as Star Wars, that has had several releases of the same movie that have slightly different effects, or just different shots and approaches, and people get really attached to a certain version of that. And then when you bring something in, you're gambling whether or not they're going to stay as firmly attached to what you've made, or if they're going to be more turned off by the fact that you even decided to go back and touch it again. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's tough. I didn't even know that about that maybe Kanye song.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I've said this before in the stream. I don't cite my sources, so it may or may not be that ours. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm always kind of behind the times on the technology, so I'm one to say like, oh, that's dangerous. You shouldn't do that. Like, just let it be. But I don't know. There's really no. I don't know. People are going to do what they're going to do. I don't know if it even matters that much either way. In a way, I mean, I guess it's all music and art is always evolving constantly, anyways. So
The wheels are spinning. I can see.
Yeah, I'm about like
I can tell.
my
I
brain
feel
is
like
about to
I feel like
break.
it's worry. I feel like it's
Yeah.
worry. Okay. I got a couple questions from.
It's breaking.
I got a couple of questions from the chat before I let you go, and we hear from Elisa and Evan. So I know that Hail the Sun plays a lot with time. Greg, do you play much with time?
Um, n- uh, not recently. No, I haven't done a lot of like odd meters and stuff. If that's what you're asking, or like.
Well,
Yes,
I
Hail
guess
the Sun does a lot of like polyrhythms and odd meters, and no, I haven't done that very often recently.
When you did, and Shane, when you do, first off, is that intentional? Like, are you writing a riff in 9/8, or are you writing a riff that happens to be in 9/8?
The example I can think of is actually from a Hail the Sun song, but the riff was written by our very own Greg Barr. And let me see if
Perfect.
I can.
I should have ended with this. Oh no.
I remember writing that riff.
It's
but I
in
don't.
it's in 14 or in 7, depending
Is
how
it
you
really?
count it.
Are you sure you didn't like change it?
Not the version you had. No, I kept that. Well, I mean, there are like, it's like an A B A B, and I'm pretty sure all the A versions are still U, exactly as written. And that was, I mean, you'll have to speak to how it was written, but I know when you showed me, it was the kind of thing that felt both out of time and in time simultaneously. Like, it didn't feel unnatural, but it didn't feel as uniform, I guess, as much of regular music.
Yeah, I wasn't in that case. I remember I wasn't trying to write something in a weird meter. I was trying to do is like I listened to your music, and I was just trying to play you, kind of. I was just trying to do a Shane. I was like, this sounds like something that I don't even think I was trying to. It was just subconscious. I was playing this thing. I was like, that sounds like Hail the Sun or something. I'm gonna show it to Shane, see if he wants to use it. It was totally subconscious.
So the question, the question from the chat is, when it's in an odd time signature, how do you count that? So are you counting? And it might be different when you're sort of writing a riff versus when you're learning or playing a riff. But are you counting that out, or are you feeling pulses? How does that work in your head?
Feeling pulses, I think. There's like so many different ways to count things, though. So however you count it, the hard part I've found is always like communicating like meters and time signatures to other people. You'll play a riff and think that it's obvious, like here's the pulse, and then other people will think the pulse is somewhere way different. So sometimes it's really hard to communicate things like meter and feel.
Yeah, the thing I would add on is that I know my girlfriend Jessie has told me that on stage, she's pretty brand new to the whole rock, especially the more math, aggressive rock with the screaming and anything like that. She was pretty brand new to that whole scene. And she has told me that one of the really helpful things is that when I'm on stage, I literally kind of dance with the pulses that Greg's talking about. And if you're paying attention, you'll be able to, I think, follow the song a little more easily if you're watching how I move to things. And that's sort of a cheat that I came up with when we were an earlier band, and I was having trouble being confident with my stage presence. And so I found myself sort of wanting to feel the rhythms differently. And like sometimes it's 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1, and stuff like that. Really, it helps break down those more complicated rhythms into the feeling side of it, which is a lot more graspable.
Cool.
Yeah, seriously, learn how to dance if you want to get good at music. If you can bring those beats into your body, it makes it so much more just.
I'm working on it.
Exactly.
It's tough to do it at my age. So I've got we were talking about committing to those wrong notes. Baja grabbed a few quotes from the chat. ElisaRockDoc says, if you play the wrong bite, play it again and louder. P. White says, play it twice, make it nice. Dan, one bad note is mistake, 3 wrong notes is jazz. And so there we go. So embrace those imperfections. Practice, get to know what you're doing, but then when it's time to create, let go a little bit. make the thing. Let yourself create the thing that you want to create, and don't be the thing that stops you from making what you want to make.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all from you. All right. I want to thank my guests for this conversation, Greg Barr and Shane Gann, both note trackers here at Rocksmith. Thanks so much for being here. We're going to see a little bit more from Shane in just a few minutes. But right now, we are going to hear from our very special community guest. We have ElisaRockDoc and Evan Lamb. They're going to tell you what they're doing. We'll talk some more about them a little bit later. Thanks again, Greg and Shane. And here is Elisa.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elisa.
I'm Evan.
And we are your friendly neighborhood Crimson. We are here because we are currently working on tracking guitars on the latest Crimson EP. You might know the work of Crimson from such great Rocksmith songs as... Here's a song that we wrote. It is Don't Stop by our band Crimson.
Great clip.
I know. Unlock that one if you haven't already. But we are currently tracking songs on our next EP, and we wanted to show off a couple of tunes that we are using as inspiration as we go on trying to figure out what the heck our songs sound like nowadays. The first song that we're going to show off is Paramore's Pressure. This is actually the first time that I encountered Paramore. Some folks might have encountered them, right? But back in my day, All We Know Is Falling was my Paramore record of choice. And this song is actually on the playlist for our song Linger. And we look to this song as inspiration for Linger in particular because of a lot of what Paramore does with guitar stuff.
So they have a really cool guitar tone just themselves. Like they work really hard on this like indie kind of really tight power chord kind of distortion, which is important, and that's one of the things I'm looking to. But the other thing I really look to for Paramore is all of like the upper structure guitar parts that they add to songs that a lot of other guitar players don't really think about. Like in the chorus of this is... That's really cool and interesting. And they're also in the verses... Like, you'll see it all in a second, but those little things make your song so thick and interesting, and it's so much cooler than just a bunch of power chords happening around, right? So that's what I'm looking for in this song.
Cool. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
That delay on the vocals.
So good.
Making a note. Love that song. If I can get just a little bit close to that kind of production value, then I will feel like I've done a good job. Get up there.
You beat me again.
Thank you. And there you go. That's Paramore's Pressure.
Nice.
Hopefully some production tips will be sneaking their way into a Crimson track near you.
Nice.
Hey, I'm Shane from the musical content team on Rocksmith. And today I'm here to talk about sound using some of the most readily available tools at our disposal. So let's dive right in. First, the two glossary terms that I'll be using today are EQ and tone. Now EQ, which is short for equalization, can be described as the balancing of different aspects of a sound. You know, in your car stereo, you might be familiar with the bass and the treble and how you can either boost or cut those. Or if you have a guitar amp at home, you might have lows, mids, and highs. It's the same concept. You're balancing different parts of the sound. And on the other side of this glossary page, we have tone, which is described as the characteristic of a sound, or maybe the color of a sound, or the texture. And there's a lot of adjectives that get thrown around for this because it's such an enigmatic field of discussion. But some of the more commonly used terms for the treble side are warm or bright. Going to the other side into the bass area, you would hear terms like cool or dark. But the main thing, I guess, to understand about tone is that, and I don't think people talk about this very much, but your tone can either be attractive or unattractive. And so my purpose here today is to avoid having you accidentally making unattractive noises. If you're using an unattractive tone, that's fine, but use it with intention. Yeah, okay. So let's dive into the tools we have at our disposal using our handy dandy guitar, which I think maybe you probably have one around. The first tool we have to change the characteristics and the EQ inherently of our tone is this pickup selector switch right here, which changes which of these I'm listening to at any given time. So this position here, with it pointing sort of down away from you, is almost universally the treble pickup. And you might even see on your pickup selector it says treble and rhythm. This treble pickup is the one that's closest to the bridge, and it has the brightest characteristics. It's the most high-end EQ-wise. Sounds like this. And some great use cases for this are anything from, just regular sort of blues, all the way up to straight up rock riffs like something like that, or all the way go full kilter into metal, which stuff like that all works extremely well using this pickup, because with all that high frequency content you get a lot of clarity. On the other hand, let's switch up all the way towards us with the pickup selector to the rhythm position, also known as the neck position because of its proximity to the guitar's neck. And this is the exact opposite of the bridge pickup in that you're getting a lot more low end. You're getting that bass frequency accentuated. So here's that. Standard use cases for the neck pickup are things like jazz, where you get this nice, thick, rich sound out of sounds great on this pickup. But you can also get away with doing more aggressive, more lead work with this pickup. There are some players like Slash or Santana that might use this pickup for their lead work to really make it smooth. Now, before we move on, I do want to give you an example of where you might accidentally do something unattractive. Let's play something similar to what we had for the rock riff that we were originally playing on the bridge pickup. Let's just hear how this sounds. So that should be enough of an indicator as to why this thing matters. Okay, and then the third position for your pickup selector is this middle position, which utilizes both pickups, or if you have 3 pickups, it utilizes just the one in the middle. And because of its proximity there, it gives you a little bit more of a balance between the 2 extremes, but that in no way makes it a universally used tone. Honestly, to a lot of people, middle position is one of the harder tones to find a good use for. But I find that there are plenty of solid applications, and I'm going to use my volume knob here to do some swells. So. And you can get away with doing leads on any pickup. So something like... Sounds good. Okay. The next tool that we will be discussing is, for me, it's this knob right here, the tone knob. Just for clarification, this knob right now does nothing. We're going to ignore it completely. This knob is my volume knob, as you can hear. And then this second knob is the tone knob, which it applies a small filter to the output of the guitar. It starts by first shaving off the highest frequencies and then continuing to shave off high frequencies. So as an example, as you can hear, things get duller and duller over time. But this is not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of times dull is actually a positive term in music because you don't want things to be sharp. You want them to be a little bit dull so that they don't hurt your ears, basically. So let's say you've got this really high lead part, like... and that's like, whoa, I don't love that. So I can actually just roll a little bit, and I'll do about halfway for this one. It's just a little bit more attractive, and that's obviously subjective as well, but it's an extremely useful tool to have. And just to give you one more sort of use case for that, let's do this again on the neck pickup so you can hear how dull things can really get. If I'm playing something like... that sounds good, but let's hear how it sounds honestly fully dulled. Let's just see... Pretty cool. So all of these are useful. All of these are important to know about as an electric guitar player or bass player. You have a tone knob, you have pickups. You might want to know how to use them. So that about wraps up all the instruction and demonstration that I had planned for today. Hopefully you've got a good understanding of what EQ is, what tone is, and maybe how to experiment with a couple of things yourself. I highly recommend diving into Tone Designer in Rocksmith, which has a massive library of uniquely created tones that suit all the songs in the library, as well as the opportunity to create custom tones from scratch. And we do have things like an EQ pedal in there, or an EQ rack unit, which actually have different sliders that accentuate or diminish each individual frequency. So you can really hear what 200 hertz sounds like, or what 3000 hertz sounds like. And hopefully you can apply this little bit of knowledge to anywhere from your car stereo, to your guitar amp at home, to the way you play Rocksmith. Thank you for watching this little video, whether you liked it or not, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the stream.
Hello and welcome back to a live segment. I am still your host and the community developer on Rocksmith, Douglas Lilly. We just heard once again from Shane Gann talking about tone shaping, and yeah, if you win, you step away and you play through an amp. What you can do with those knobs and switches on your guitar. Find out finally how to use those to your benefit. Before that, we heard from ElisaRockDoc and Evan Lamb of Crimson. And Evan, of course, also of Try More Mojo, which I think we're going to maybe hear a little bit about in a moment. If not, there's going to be a link in the chat probably as I'm saying this. So right now we're going to do a song pack giveaway. We have 5 copies of the Chuck Berry song pack for Steam. So if you own Rocksmith 2014 or will own Rocksmith 2014 on Steam, and don't already own the Chuck Berry song pack, now is your chance. So we're just going to drop these in the chat. UB Dork, that is Baja. Sorry, I slipped up on that. Baja, she is our community manager in North Carolina. She is going to drop 5 copies of the Chuck Berry song pack in the chat. Those are just the codes. First come, first serves. You grab them, you redeem them. They're yours. Congratulations. Right now, we're going to hear one more song from Elisa and Evan. So thank you very much for being here. And here is ElisaRockDoc and Evan Lamb.
And the next song that we are going to show off is No Doubts Don't Speak, which Tragic Kingdom is probably a perfect album in every way. And if you haven't already, just listen to the whole thing front to back. It's fantastic.
The important thing is to listen to it with headphones.
Yes.
Because there is so much production, horns and strings and keyboards and mellotrons. And background vocals, and there's so much stuff going on in this record, and you should really pay attention to the really quiet things. So put on headphones and pay attention. As
a woman who likes to write about unrequited love and exes in a guitar forward rock band, let's just say that this album is very, very extremely important to me, and I'm chasing just a little bit of that Tragic Kingdom magic. And so for our power ballad, Never Be the Same, we are referencing Don't Speak by No Doubt. And let's listen to how awesome this song is. Yay! This song is also cool because it's like one of the first songs that you and I ever did together, I think.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty nice. Also, the bass is putting in so much work.
Tony Kanal was so mad.
So good.
You wrote a song about what? And that's going to be our hit for a while? Oh, man. Okay, I'll stop.
Also, shout out to slow fades. We don't get enough of those anymore. Thank you so much for hanging out with us while we show off a couple of our inspirations for our latest EP. And hopefully next time we see you, we'll have a little bit more news and maybe even some stuff to play for you.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Hard maybe.
Hard maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But hey, guess what?
What?
Happy anniversary this weekend.
Oh, man.
Got him.
Gross.
Bye.
Thank you so much once more to Elisa and Evan for performing with us. Always a pleasure to have you on, whether you're playing songs, whether you're chatting with us live. Saw you be Jurassic in the chat. Thanks for stopping by, Brian, our old community manager. And thank you to everybody who's here today, everybody who watched, hung out with us. Want to say thank you to our conversation guests, Greg Barr and Shane Gann, and again Shane Gann for the video segment on how to use your knobs, how to get some good tone on your guitar. Dan Amrick, the voice in my head, running board ops. Thank you, and Baja for helping us in the chat and giving away those codes and getting some of those good questions to me. If you have something that you want to hear us talk about here on the stream, let us know. I do have we did get one recommendation already from Felicia Stoddard. So if you have something that you want to hear us talk about, whether it be music history, something with guitar culture, theory, technique, let us know. You can do that here. You can do that on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. Instagram and Twitter, we are at Rocksmith Game. Facebook.com/Rocksmith will get you to our page. And just let us know if there's something that you would like to hear our take on. If not, just stop by anyway, and maybe we'll talk about something you care about. Thank you again for being here, everyone. We'll be back in 2 weeks. This has been your Rocksmith Developer Stream. See you next time.